I wasn't mad when he called me poor dad. I was done pretending. Miami sticks to your skin like a bad apology. I walk Ocean Drive at dawn, goals heckling, my old Timex ticking. The watch my wife wore when the world went quiet. Folks see a retired widower in thrift store sneakers. Good. Camouflage keeps me alive. I'm Tanner, 70, duplex with a wheezing AIC, Social Security check under a Marlin magnet. Coffee can on the counter. That's the picture I let them keep. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you're listening in the comments. Money's a tool. Silence is sharper. The loudest man pays the bar tab and the lawyer. Dad, can you come by? Big news. Theo's voice is bright and careful. Third grade teacher. Buys pencils herself. Still send me home with leftovers. Best thing I ever made. I grab a cafecito. Cups clink. Sugar snaps. The kid says abuelito. I tip too much. Theo's porch smells like tangerines. Her look says please like the person I'm about to introduce. He waits inside. Tall, hair sprayed into compliance. Watch face big as a hubcap. Hand shake like a ballot. Performative, not binding. Dad, this is Quentin. She beams. We're engaged. Engaged lands like a coin bright, rolling toward an edge. His eyes skim my patched elbow and scuffed heel, miss the steadiness of my hands. Mr. Tanner, Theo says you're retired. Sunday school smile. What did you do? Accounting. I say, true enough. Numbers don't lie. People make them lie. We'll make sure Theo is comfortable. The pause puts a price tag on love. I set a brown envelope on the table. A gift for the honeymoon. I leave it sealed. Gravity works better that way. Theo squeezes the chain that holds my wedding band. I want to like him. I prefer peace, but peace isn't blind. He name drops his family. Prominent, respected, doors that open without knocking. I know the name. I've heard it in rooms where coffee goes cold. Pedigree comes with paperwork. Paperwork leaves trails. Back home, the AIC coughs. I pour ice over bourbon and listen to it crack. The metal tin behind the cereal boxes doesn't hold cash. It holds keys. A downtown lockbox smells like paper and victories. I slide out a thin folder. On the tab, block letters. Quentin. Inside, dividends sleeping like snakes. Minutes that never made the press. Signatures like power in a different tie. I've kept this quiet a long time. Silence has weight and leverage. Some men bring a shotgun to a duel. I bring disclosure. Tonight I sleep. Tomorrow I count. When the count ends, someone learns the difference between loud and strong. I close the folder. The paper whispers. The Timex keeps patient time. I slide the file back, then stop, because the next sound isn't siren, clock, or ice. It's my phone, lighting up a number from an old war, and a voice I never expected. Mr. Tanner? This is Zeke Quentin. We should talk. Funny thing about snakes, Zeke said, his voice dry as the sawdust on a Texas dance floor. They bite hardest when you don't know you're stepping on them. I stare at the phone in my hand, thumb hovering. Zeke Quentin, the patriarch. The man whose family name rattled boardrooms and cocktail hours. A man who, without knowing it, had signed more papers across my desk than he could count. Papers that put his empire in my hands years ago. I don't believe in late-night fairy tales, I said. Call back in daylight. But Zeke didn't miss a beat. You better believe in family, Tanner, because one's about to make a very expensive mistake. Then the line clicked dead like a door slammed in the dark. Sleep didn't come easy. Miami at night is all hum and hiss. The neon buzz, the drunks singing too sharp. I sat in my recliner, bourbon glass sweating, replaying Theo's bright smile. She deserved joy, not barbed wire promises from a man wearing his father's shadow. By sunrise, I made a choice. If Quentin Blood wanted a war, they get silence first. Silence unsettles. Silence makes people show their hand. Theo called mid-morning, her voice like spring air. Dad, did you get home safe? She didn't mention the envelope I left. That told me she hadn't opened it yet. $80,000. Sunsets in Greece, not arguments in a Miami condo. That was my gift Not my confession. Safe and sound, kiddo. Your Quentin seems confident. She laughed, soft and nervous. He just wants to take care of me. Care is action, not lip service, I said. She went quiet. I walked to the pier. Gulls stabbing at fish guts. Old men casting lines that never touched water. One of them nodded at me. Eyes narrowed like he remembered my face from another lifetime. That's the danger of masks. You wear them too long, they crack. Back home, I opened the lockbox again. The folder stared back, daring me. There were photographs. Quentin Enterprises holiday parties, directors with champagne grins. I had contracts buried so deep the family tree grew through them. My signature was the soil. But my war wasn't with Zeke. Not yet. My war was with the boy who thought poor dad was a punchline. The boy who measured manhood in Rolexes and guest lists. I practiced his name under my breath. Quentin, short, sharp like a gavel strike. Every strike echoes. The night before the wedding, Theo dropped by with a cake tin. Taste test, she said, cheeks flushed. She didn't notice the fatigue carved under my eyes. You happy? I asked her. She set the tin down, her smile a little too practiced. Of course. Happy's not a rehearsal, Theo. Don't fake it for me. Her lips trembled before she kissed my forehead. She left the cake, but the air smelled of doubt. I cut a slice. Too sweet, too heavy. Just like the family she was marrying into. I dumped it in the sink, watched frosting swirl down the drain. The next day, my phone rang again. This time it wasn't Zeke. It was an unfamiliar voice, younger, slicker. Mr. Tanner, this is Quentin. We should set some ground rules before tomorrow. And just like that, the boy had walked into my sights. Ground rules, Quentin said, each syllable dripping entitlement, like a man who never paid for his own drink. I let the silence stretch. Miami Heat hummed through the receiver, the line alive with his impatience. Finally, I asked, ground rules for what, son? For the wedding, he replied. Look, I know Theo loves you, but tomorrow's about us, about my family. I don't want any surprises. Keep the toast short. Stay in your lane. People already wonder why Theo's father looks like he can't afford valet. His words were smooth, rehearsed, but the arrogance bled through. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the old photograph on the wall, me and my wife on the beach, the ocean curling behind us like a signature of time. I traced her smile with my eyes, and I felt the burn settle low in my chest. Young man, I said evenly, my lane is wider than you can imagine. Careful you don't drive off the edge. He laughed thin, nervous. Don't get dramatic. I'm just asking you not to embarrass Theo. Or me. Click. I ended the call. No good night, no warning. Sometimes silence is sharper than a blade. That evening, I polished my shoes, a ritual from a time when appearances mattered in boardrooms and embassies. The leather caught the lamplight, black and stern. I laid out the navy suit, the one with shoulders that still made me look taller than I felt. Beside it, the envelope for Theo. 80 grand looked small on paper, but heavy with meaning. I tried sleeping. No luck. My mind replayed Quentin's smirk, the way his handshake had been limp and decorative. The kid didn't respect me. Worse, he didn't respect Theo. And men who confuse possession with love are the most dangerous kind. Dawn crept in, painting the blinds with gold. I made coffee, packed the cufflinks my wife gave me on our 20th anniversary. She'd said they made me look untouchable. Today, they'd serve as armor. At the church, the air conditioning struggled against Florida's weight. Guests filed in, sequins and cologne heavy as smoke. I caught sight of Theo in her dress, radiant, nervous. She hugged me tight, whispered, "Don't let him get to you." Her eyes searched mine, begging for reassurance. I gave her a steady smile. I don't rattle easy. But then Quentin approached, tuxedo sharp, smirk sharper. "Mr. Tanner, glad you made it. Just remember, today's not about you." I looked him straight in the eye. "Son, today is about truth. You do well not to forget that." The organ began. The crowd hushed. The ceremony unfolded like a play, each gesture rehearsed. I stood quiet, steady, a ghost in plain sight. until the toast began. Quentin raised his glass, his smile too wide, his voice carrying like a trumpet. To my beautiful bride and to her humble father, proof that love conquers all, even when it comes from a man who lives on Social Security checks. Laughter rippled. Glasses clinked. All eyes turned to me. And I sat there, calm as a stone, though inside a storm had just found its voice. The laughter rolled through the hall like a wave, shallow, cruel, echoing off chandeliers that once reflected dignity. 150 guests chuckled into their champagne flutes, all too eager to follow the lead of a groom too young to understand the cost of mockery. I didn't move, didn't flinch. My glass sat untouched, condensation dripping slowly onto the white linen, like seconds ticking away. Inside, the storm rose, memories of boardrooms, of men twice Quentin's age who'd underestimated me and paid dearly for it. I'd learned long ago, the man who speaks last holds the floor. Theo's eyes darted to me across the table, wide, pleading. She mouthed, "I'm sorry." Her fingers trembled on the stem of her glass. I gave the slightest shake of my head. This wasn't her shame to carry. Quentin, emboldened by the crowd, pressed on. "It takes courage to marry up, doesn't it, Theo? But hey, we all start somewhere. Some with trust funds." He let his gaze linger on me, and some with food stamps. The laughter sharpened, crueler this time. My jaw tightened, but my pulse slowed. The calmer I looked, the more the boy thought he was winning. He didn't see the trap he'd just built for himself. Zeke, his father, shifted uncomfortably. His eyes flickered between me and his son. A man who'd spent decades navigating power could smell a storm, even if his boy was too blind to see it. I raised my glass finally. The laughter dimmed, curiosity tugging at the edges of the crowd. My voice was steady, quiet enough to make them lean closer. "To love," I said simply, "may it outlast arrogance." I sipped, then set the glass down, my eyes never leaving Quentin's. The silence after my words carried more weight than his entire speech. Guests shifted in their seats, unsure if they'd just laughed at the wrong joke. But Quentin wasn't finished. Pride is a blindfold, and he wore it tight. "Oh, come on," he said, grinning wide. "Lighten up, old man. No hard feelings. We know Theo will always take care of you." The room winced as one. Even the band stopped fiddling with their instruments. I saw Theo's cheeks flush red, her hand frozen halfway to her face. That was strike one. Public humiliation, loud and sharp, meant to brand me weak. He didn't realize the mark was his own. I leaned back, folded my hands. My wife used to say stillness is the loudest answer. And tonight, I'd let that stillness grow teeth. Zeke suddenly stood, chair legs screeching against marble. He pointed at me, his voice booming. "Tanner? Tanner." The name rattled the chandeliers harder than laughter ever could. "Son, do you have any idea who you just insulted?" Quentin blinked. Confusion painted across his smug grin. "What are you talking about, Dad?" Zeke's eyes burned into me, then into his son. "You just mocked a man who owns everything you've ever pretended was yours." The crowd gasped, champagne spilling, whispers cutting sharp through the air. And for the first time that night, Quentin's smile cracked. The room froze. Forks midair, champagne glasses trembling just enough to spill over sequin dresses. Zeke's words had ripped the air in half. "The man who owns everything you've ever pretended was yours." Quentin's smirk collapsed like wet plaster. "Dad, were you saying?" His voice cracked on the last word. Boyish, stripped of the bravado he'd wrapped himself in all night. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Zeke did it for me. "Son, this man, this so-called poor dad, he isn't some pensioner you can sneer at. He's the reason your mother still wears diamonds. He's the one who kept the company afloat when our own arrogance nearly sank it. Tanner isn't broke. He's the billionaire who bought us out." The word billionaire detonated like a grenade. Guests gasped. A bridesmaid actually dropped her bouquet, petals scattered across polished marble. Cameras, those little digital eyes everyone carries, flashed, desperate to capture history unfolding at a wedding altar. Quentin turned to me, sweat beating his temple. That can't be true." His voice was more plea than protest. I finally spoke, calm as low tide. Truth doesn't need your permission, son. Theo's hands flew to her mouth, her eyes wide not with horror, but with dawning comprehension. She knew I lived modestly, scraping by, she thought, but never questioned, never oppressed. To her credit, she loved me without price tags. That love now met a truth heavy enough to bend steel. Guests whispered louder. Words like fortune, empire, silent partner buzzed around the room. And with each whisper, Quentin shrank. The proud rooster who'd mocked me an hour ago now looked like a boy shoved into his father's suit. He stammered, desperate. "Mr. Tanner, sir, I didn't mean—" I held up a hand. "Don't apologize to me. Respect is a habit, not a costume you put on when the lights change." The crowd murmured approval. Low, dangerous, like the growl before a dog bites. For the first time all evening, the power had shifted. Quentin was no longer the showman. He was the spectacle. Theo looked between us, torn, but her voice trembled with anger. "Quentin, how dare you?" In front of everyone. His cheeks burned crimson. He tried to recover, raising his glass again, forcing a chuckle. "Well, hey, we all make mistakes, right? Just a joke that went too far." But nobody laughed this time. The silence was heavier than thunderclouds. Even the clinking of dishes had stopped. That was strike two. His second public humiliation, written not by my hand but by his own arrogance, sharpened by his father's truth. I leaned closer. My voice meant only for him, though the whole room seemed to hear it. "You wanted ground rules? Here's mine. You never measure a man by his wallet. You measure him by the weight of his word." He swallowed hard, Adam's apple bobbing like a buoy in rough seas. And then Theo, her hands trembling but her chin high, whispered what everyone was already thinking. "Maybe I don't know you at all." The crowd inhaled, sharp and unified, as if the wedding itself had cracked down the middle. And I knew then, the final strike was still to come. Quentin's tuxedo suddenly looked 2 sizes too big, his confidence puddled at his feet. The guest's eyes burned into him. Not me. He tugged at his collar, trying to laugh it off, but the laughter never came. Zeke sat back down slowly, the authority of a man who'd seen empires topple resting heavy in his shoulders. He didn't spare his son a glance. His gaze was fixed on me. Respect. A respect that Quentin had mistaken for fear until tonight. Theo clutched her bouquet so tight I thought the stems would snap. Her voice cut sharp to the murmurs. "You embarrassed my father twice." Each word hit Quentin harder than my silence ever could. Quentin raised his palms. "Theo, baby, you know I was kidding. It was just a joke." But jokes only work when people are laughing. And no one was. I rose slowly, letting the chair legs scrape the marble, the sound dragging like a blade across stone. Every head turned. My movements carried weight, not age. My wife once told me, "Walk like you're already in command, and the room will follow." She was right. I set my napkin down, folded neat as a contract. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, voice steady but low, "I came tonight to celebrate love. Love that should be built on honor, not humiliation. I have nothing to prove to this boy, but I will not sit silent while arrogance poisons what should be sacred." Gasps stirred. Theo's lips trembled, her eyes shining with tears she refused to shed. The bridesmaids leaned closer, wide-eyed, as if afraid to miss a single word. Quentin panicked. He stepped forward, glass still in hand, sloshing champagne onto the floor. "Wait, please. Mr. Tanner, I didn't mean it. Let's not ruin this night. Ruin it." I turned to him slowly, letting the pause weigh heavy. "Son, you ruined it the moment you thought my worth was measured in dollars." Strike 3 was close. I could feel it humming in the air, like the electric stillness before a hurricane slams a coast. Theo finally broke, turning to him with fire in her voice. "You made a fool out of my father, in front of everyone I love. How do you think that makes me feel?" Quentin stammered, his face flushed, sweat beading at his temples. I was nervous. I thought, "Look, let's just move on. We'll toast again. Clean slate." The crowd didn't buy it. Murmurs turned to judgment, then to ridicule. A groomsman muttered too loudly, "Hell of a slate to start with." Laughter followed, cruel but this time aimed squarely at Quentin. There it was, his third humiliation. Not crafted by me, not forced by Zeke. This one came from his peers, the very audience he had tried to impress. And the sting of their mockery was a blade sharper than any truth I could wield. I stood tall, nodded once at Theo, and laid my final words of the night. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned. Remember that if you want to be worthy of the woman standing beside you. The hall erupted. Some clapping, some gasping, some whispering like vultures circling a carcass. I set my glass down and turned for the door. My Timex ticked steady on my wrist, echoing louder than applause. Behind me, Quentin's voice cracked, desperate. Theo, wait. Tell him not to go. Please, don't let him leave. But I didn't stop, because the next door I opened wasn't just the exit to that hall. It was the entrance to a reckoning I'd been holding back for years. The night air hit me like a baptism, humid, heavy, but cleansing. I stepped out of the hall, leaving behind the stunned gasps, the muffled whispers, the faint sound of Quentin begging Theo to keep me seated. My shoes struck the marble steps with the rhythm of finality. Miami at night is loud, horns, salsa spilling from bars, engines revving. But in my chest, silence. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full, like a storm gathering its weight. I reached the curb where a black town car idled. The driver, an old Cuban named Raul I'd known for 20 years, tipped his cap. He never asked questions, never needed to. He opened the door, and I slid inside, the leather cool against my palms. As we pulled away, I looked back once. Through the stained glass windows of the hall, I saw flickers of movement. Quentin pacing like a trapped animal, Theo rooted in place, Zeke seated with the stillness of a man who already understood how the night would end. Raul broke the silence. Bad night, senor? I shook my head slowly. Necessary night. The car rolled past neon-lit diners and shuttered storefronts until we reached the heart of downtown. Raul parked outside a nondescript high-rise. I carried no briefcase, no entourage, just the keys to a lockbox and the will to use what was inside. In the quiet vault room, fluorescent lights buzzed like hornets. I spun the dial on the box, muscle memory guiding me. Inside waited the life Quentin believed didn't exist. Deeds, shares, contract with signatures that could topple his family's empire in a heartbeat. I pulled one folder out, thinner than the rest. On its cover, Quentin Enterprises, majority holdings. My holdings. My leverage. I slipped it into my jacket pocket. Tonight wasn't about money. It was about respect. And respect, when denied, must be reclaimed in full. Back in the car, Raul glanced at me through the rear view. Heading home. I hesitated, then shook my head. No, take me to the water. We drove to the edge of Biscayne Bay. I stepped out, the salt air mixing with the scent of night-blooming jasmine. Waves slapped against the seawall, like a steady drumbeat. I stood there, looking at the city lights reflected in the dark water, and spoke aloud as if my wife were beside me. Maria, he tried to humiliate me. In front of Theo. In front of everyone. But he doesn't know what's coming. You told me once to fight only for what matters. Well, Theo matters. My name matters. The wind carried my words out to sea. I felt the weight in my chest shift, not lighter, but sharper. A blade being honed. My phone buzzed. Theo. I let it ring once, twice, 3 times before I answered. Dad. Her voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I should have stopped him. I closed my eyes, listening to the ache in her words. You didn't fail me, kiddo. He did. And now, he has to learn what failure tastes like. Please don't do anything rash, she whispered. But I'd already made my choice. The boy had thrown the first stone. Now, I would finish building the wall it started. I hung up, slid the phone into my pocket, and turned back toward the city. Because tomorrow, the real wedding gift will be mine to deliver, and it wouldn't come wrapped in paper. It would come wrapped in truth sharp enough to cut his world in half. Morning light spilled over Miami like molten brass, glaring off the high-rises, peeling away the last of the night's illusions. I sat at my kitchen table with a black coffee, and the folder laid open before me. Contracts, acquisitions, percentages. It was a language of power, the grammar of silence. The phone buzzed again. Not Theo this time. Zeke. I let it ring. Watched the name glow across the screen. Finally, I answered. Tanner, he said, voice gravel rough. You made your point last night. My son's an arrogant fool, but this storm you're brewing, it could scorch us all. Then you should have raised him better, I said. He exhaled, long and bitter. You think I don't know that? I built the stage he dances on, and now the audience is turning on him. But listen to me. Whatever you do, leave the company out of it. Don't burn down the house to punish the child. I stare at the folder, at the signature of Zeke himself. Seating majority control years ago where his empire wobbled like a drunk on slick pavement. The house was mine the day you sold it, I said. Zeke went silent. Then, so this is personal. Damn right it is. I ended the call. No threats, no promises, just truth. By noon, the story had spread. Guests with cameras had already uploaded clips of Quentin's toast, his smirk, his words. And then the reveal. Comments piled like debris in a flood. Rich fool. Karma at the altar. Don't bite the hand that owns you. I walked through a corner store, picking up a pack of gum just to hear the cashier's radio. Even there, in the scratchy static between salsa songs, a DJ laughed about the Miami wedding meltdown. Quentin won an audience. Now he had won the whole city, but my revenge wasn't finished. Public shame is the spark. Justice is a flame. I dialed Raul. We need to visit some old friends. That afternoon, we cruised through Coral Gables, past iron gates and manicured lawns. Old money lived here, sipping bourbon on porches while they waited for the world to keep bowing. I knocked on a door that hadn't opened to me in 15 years. Inside, an investor named Howard greeted me, his eyebrows shooting up. Tanner? Lord Almighty, I thought you retired to shack. I smiled. That's what they all thought. We sat, drank, and I slid the folder across his mahogany desk. His eyes widened as he scanned the papers. You control this much of Quentin Enterprises. Control isn't the word, I said. Ownership is. Howard leaned back, whistling low. What do you want from me? Witnesses. I replied, the next time I speak, I don't want it to be just noise in a ballroom. I want the right ears listening. And I want Quentin's pride dismantled in daylight. Howard chuckled, admiration mingling with caution. You always did know how to stage an execution. I rose, buttoning my jacket. Not an execution. A lesson. Back in the car. Raul eyed me in the mirror. You look lighter, senor. Not lighter, I said, watching the city roll past. Sharpened. And sharpened blades cut deepest when the world is watching. By the third day, Miami had turned into a rumor mill with neon lights. Every diner booth, every golf course, every pier where old men swapped lies. Quentin's name was a punchline. I didn't need to push. The city did the work for me. But revenge without precision is just chaos. I wasn't after noise. I was after silence, the kind that falls when a man realizes the ground beneath him has collapsed. I called Theo that morning. Her voice was soft, raw from sleepless nights. Dad, he's a wreck. Reporters camped outside his condo. He won't even leave for work. Then the cracks are showing, I said. She hesitated. But is this what you wanted? To see him crumble? I closed my eyes, remembered the laughter echoing off crystal chandeliers, the sting of being called a pauper before my daughter and strangers alike. No, Theo, what I want is for him to learn. What I need is for you never to doubt the worth of your blood again. She was quiet, but I heard her tears. I just don't want to lose you in the fire. You won't, I promised. But he might. That afternoon, I arranged a luncheon at the Biltmore. 12 men and women of influence, the kind who don't check menus before ordering. They'd all seen the clips, but they hadn't heard my version. I arrived early, navy suit pressed, cufflinks gleaming like metals. As they trickled in, whispers turned to handshakes to murmured admiration. Hell of a way to reveal yourself, Tanner, one banker said. Not a reveal, I corrected. A reminder. Respect is earned and arrogance has a cost. Over steak and bourbon, I laid out my terms, a quiet restructuring of Quentin Enterprises. My shares shifted, alliances redrawn. Not enough to kill the company, just enough to put on notice. Howard, sipping his drink, leaned in. So when do you make it public? I smiled. Soon, but not before he feels the floor drop twice more. Humiliation without permanence is just theater. I intend to make a history. When the luncheon ended, reporters loitered outside, hungry for scraps. One shoved a mic toward me. Mr. Tanner, is it true you control Quentin Enterprises? I looked straight into the camera. Control isn't the word. Ownership is. And with ownership comes responsibility, something some people mistake for privilege. By dinner, the clip was everywhere. Cable news anchors replayed it, dissecting every syllable. And across the city, Quentin drowned deeper. That night, Raoul drove me past Brickell. Outside a rooftop bar, I saw him, disheveled, shirt wrinkled, arguing with a bartender who wouldn't serve him more credit. Phones were out, filming. His voice cracked, shrill against the hum of nightlife. Do you know who I am? The bartender shrugged. Yeah, you're the guy who humiliated himself at his own wedding. Laughter erupted, strangers jeering. Quentin shoved past them, stumbling onto the street, red-faced and broken. Cameras followed like wolves. It was his fourth humiliation, but the first one that truly stripped him bare. And I wasn't done yet. Quentin's fall was no longer a stumble. It was a free fall, and Miami had front-row seats. By morning, every gossip column from South Beach to Tallahassee carried grainy videos of him shouting at bartenders, drunk and desperate. Memes sprouted overnight. Do you know who I am? Plastered across his photo, followed by captions like nobody cares, bro. I sat at my kitchen table, cafecito steaming, and watched the city chew him up. But revenge isn't letting the mob feed. It's choosing when to serve the main course. Theo came by just after sunrise. Her eyes were red, her voice worn thin. Dad, he's spiraling. He says he can fix it if you'll just talk to him. Please, for me. I studied her, the same way I used to study ledgers, searching for truth between the lines. She still loved him, or at least a dream of him. But dreams can be costly. I'll talk to him, I said finally, but not to fix him, to finish this. That evening, I arranged a meeting. A neutral place, a private lounge in Coconut Grove, quiet but upscale. Raoul drove me, silent as always. When we arrived, Quentin was already there, slumped in a leather chair, his bravado leaking out like air from a punctured tire. He jumped to his feet. Mr. Tanner, sir, I'm sorry. I was nervous. The toast, it came out wrong. I let him twist in the silence. He fumbled on. Look, I love Theo. I'll treat her right. Just don't destroy me. Please. I leaned in, my voice low, steady. You mocked me to make yourself feel taller. But respect isn't a loan, Quentin. You can't borrow it on credit and pay it back when it's convenient. He swallowed, sweat shining under the dim lights. I'll prove myself. Give me a chance. Tell me what to do. I opened the folder and slid it across the table. His eyes darted across the documents. His family's company, signatures, the undeniable proof of my control. His hands shook. You wanted ground rules. I said, here's mine. You will never again use my daughter's name to elevate your own. You will never again mistake humility for weakness. And you will never, ever forget that every door you walk through I built. Tears welled in his eyes. He looked less like a groom and more like a boy caught stealing candy. I understand, he whispered, but I wasn't finished. No, you don't, because this isn't about you. It's about Theo. If she chooses to stay by your side, it will be her mercy, not mine. If she walks away, you'll remember that you had every chance and squandered it. He collapsed back into the chair, broken. What do you want from me? I stood, buttoned my jacket, and let the weight of silence carry the answer. Then I leaned down, close enough for only him to hear. What I want, I whispered, is for you to live every day knowing you laughed at the wrong man. I turned for the door. And just as Raul opened it, my phone buzzed. A message from Theo. Dad, something's happened. Come quick. The real storm was only beginning. Theo's message was short, but it carried the urgency of a siren. Come quick. No explanation, no details. Just fear pressed into 6 words. Raul gunned the engine, the town car slicing through Coconut Grove's winding streets. My pulse kept time with the wipers, steady, relentless. At 70, I thought I'd mastered patience, but tonight patience was a stranger. We pulled up outside Theo's condo, a glass tower of steel and light overlooking Biscayne Bay. Paparazzi buzzed at the entrance like flies on a carcass. Flashbulbs lit the night, reporters shouting Quentin's name. I pushed through, the crowd parting just enough for me to slip inside. The lobby smelled of polished marble and desperation. Upstairs, the elevator opened to a hallway lined with neighbors whispering like parishioners before a scandal. Theo met me at the door, her eyes swollen, mascara streaked like war paint. Dad, she gasped, pulling me in. The living room was chaos. Champagne bottles shattered on the floor, glass glittering under recessed lights. Quentin sat on the couch, hunched, tie undone, a half-empty tumbler dangling from his hand. His face was pale, his eyes bloodshot. "Look what you've done," Theo whispered, her voice trembling with both fury and heartbreak. Quentin raised his head slowly, blinking at me as if through fog. "This is your fault," he slurred. "You," he jabbed a finger at me. "You turned them against me. My friends, my family, the whole damn city." I stayed silent, letting his words drown in the stillness. Theo stepped between us. He hasn't eaten in 2 days. He won't sleep. He just keeps unraveling. Quentin barked a bitter laugh. "What's the point? Everywhere I go, people whisper. Every screen I see me. The joke. The fool." His voice cracked. "They used to know me as Quentin. Now I'm just a guy who got destroyed at his own wedding." I crouched down, met his eyes level. "No, son, you destroyed yourself. All I did was let the truth breathe." He flinched, his jaw working. Then, suddenly, he slammed the glass against the table, shards skittering across the floor. Theo cried out, backing away. I didn't move. Fear is fuel, and I'd burned it long ago. "You think you've won," he hissed. "But this isn't over. I'll fix it. I'll claw my way back. You'll see." I stood slowly, towering over him not with height, but with steadiness. "The only thing people will see," I said, voice like stone, "is a man who mistook arrogance for strength, and strength for cruelty." Theo's tears spilled. "Dad, please, don't push him more." I placed a hand on her shoulder, steady. "I won't push, but I won't shield him, either. Some lessons, Theo, can only be learned in fire." Quentin sagged back into the couch, hands trembling, eyes darting like a cornered animal. The room was thick with the smell of spilled liquor and shame. I turned toward the door, but before leaving, I glanced back once more. "Remember this night," I told him quietly, "because it's the first of many where you'll have to face yourself, and you won't like what you see." As Raul drove me home, Theo's voice lingered in my ear, breaking like glass. "Don't lose yourself, Dad. Don't become him." But she didn't understand. Becoming him was never the risk. The risk was becoming nothing at all. Miami's dawn was cruelly bright, as if the sun itself wanted to spotlight the wreckage left behind. I stood on my balcony with a black coffee, watching gulls dive bomb the waves. In the city below, newspapers hit doorsteps, each one carrying Quentin's name across the front page. The groom who mocked a billionaire. I didn't smile. Satisfaction isn't the same as joy. By mid-morning, my phone rang again. Zeke. His voice carried the weight of whiskey and regret. "Tanner, I warned you. The boy's unraveling. The board is rattled. If you press harder, you'll break more than his pride. You'll ruin the company." "Your company," I said flatly, "not mine." "You own it on paper," he shot back, "but blood still beats ink. You can humiliate my son all you want, but if the empire crumbles, the rot touches you too." I let him finish, then said, "Empires don't crumble from truth. They crumble from arrogance. Your son provided both." He went quiet. When he spoke again, his tone softened. Don't mistake vengeance for justice, Tanner. One can rot you quicker than the other. I ended the call without reply. That afternoon, Theo came by. She looked older than her years, dark circles shadowing her eyes. She carried a small box and set it on my table. Inside lay my envelope, unopened. I couldn't take it, she whispered. $80,000 for a honeymoon, when the man I thought I loved doesn't even know the meaning of respect? I can't use your gift for a lie. I looked at her, my daughter, the one person whose opinion could bend me. Theo, money was never the gift. Freedom was. Use it however you need. She shook her head, tears threatening. I'm sorry I didn't see him sooner. I should have trusted your instincts. I reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Trust isn't about never failing, kiddo. It's about finding your way back after you do. That night, word spread further. Cable networks replayed clips of Quentin storming out of bars, paparazzi chasing him through parking lots, and whispers of board members convening emergency meetings. He wasn't just a spectacle anymore. He was a liability. I sat in the dark, the folder open in front of me, and felt the weight of inevitability. 3 times he had been humiliated in public. 3 times he had shown the world his weakness. But there was one strike left, one final stage where the lesson would echo loudest. Revenge stories, the kind folks tell over beers or watch on YouTube late at night, always lead here. The reckoning. As I closed the folder, I heard Maria's voice in memory, soft but certain. Dignity doesn't shout. It waits. And when it speaks, it's undeniable. I whispered into the stillness, it's time. Because Quentin's destruction wasn't just about broken pride anymore. It was about restoring the meaning of my name. And names, once cleansed in fire, shine brighter than gold. By the 13th day, Miami buzzed like a beehive poked with a stick. Every talk show, every podcast, every newspaper headline dragged Quentin's name through the mud. Strangers laughed about him in coffee shops. His humiliation looped endlessly on phones. The boy had become a punchline carved into the city's memory. But I wasn't finished. Humiliation is noise. What I had planned next was silence, the kind that drops like a gavel. That morning, I summoned the board of Quentin Enterprises, not with begging or threats, just a quiet directive on letterhead that bore my signature. Ownership has a tone you can't fake. By noon, they sat around a mahogany table, their eyes flicking nervously toward the empty seat, where Zeke should have been. When I entered, conversation died. My cufflinks glinted beneath the fluorescent lights, steady as a lighthouse beam. I placed the folder at the head of the table and spoke plainly. This company, I said, has weathered storms, financial, political, personal. But arrogance has eroded its foundation. It's time we restore balance. Whispers. One man cleared his throat. Mr. Tanner, are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting. I'm declaring. I slid the papers forward. Effective immediately, Quentin is suspended from any role in this company. His recklessness has endangered its reputation. And reputation, as you all know, is a currency that outlasts dollars. There was no applause, no cheers, just a collective exhale of men and women, relieved someone else had pulled the trigger they'd been too afraid to touch. Afterward, I stepped outside where reporters swarmed. Microphones thrust forward, questions firing like bullets. Is Quentin finished? Will you take over as CEO? Is this revenge? I raised a hand, silencing them. This isn't revenge. It's stewardship. A company belongs to those who respect it. Quentin forgot that. I won't let the rest of you forget. By evening, the story hit every screen in America. Clips of me leaving the boardroom played side by side with footage of Quentin, disheveled, refusing comment as paparazzi chased him through the parking lot. That night, Theo came by again. Her face was pale, her hands twisting nervously. Dad, you took his world apart today. I nodded. He built it on sand. All I did was let the tide in. She bit her lip. And what happens now? I stared past her, out at the Miami skyline glowing like embers. Now, I said, comes the final image, the one he'll never escape. She shivered, whispering, You scare me sometimes. I placed a hand on her shoulder, gentle but firm. Don't be scared, Theo. Be proud. This isn't about cruelty. It's about clarity. And clarity is a gift, even when it cuts. Because tomorrow, I knew exactly where Quentin would be, and exactly how I'd end the story where it began, in public, under the weight of every eye that once laughed at me. The city felt like it was holding its breath. News anchors spoke my name with a mix of awe and disbelief, while Quentin's face flashed on every screen, the smirk replaced by a hunted stare. He'd become the man everyone recognized for all the wrong reasons. But humiliation without closure is just spectacle. I wanted resolution, the kind that sears itself into memory. And fate handed me the stage. A charity gala, downtown Miami. An event Quentin's family had sponsored for decades, their name etched in marble above the doors. I received the invitation and signed, but I knew who sent it. Zeke. Pride still clung to the old man like a second skin. And even now, he wanted to prove his family wasn't broken. Raul drove me that evening. The city pulsed neon, music spilling from open bars. But the gala was another world. Velvet ropes, paparazzi flashes. Tuxedos that cost more than a teacher's yearly salary. As I stepped out, whispers rippled through the crowd. Phones rose, lenses turned. They knew the story. They knew me. Inside, crystal chandeliers cast fractured light over a sea of sequins and cigars. The orchestra swelled, and voices hummed with that peculiar blend of wealth and insecurity. And there, near the stage, stood Quentin, pale, rigid, clutching a glass he hadn't touched. Theo wasn't at his side. She was smarter than that. Zeke spotted me, jaw tight, and made his way over. "You didn't have to come," he said under his breath. "Yes," I replied. "I did." When the speeches began, Quentin stumbled onto the stage, his bow tie loose, his voice shaky through the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight is about legacy, about the strength of family, even in difficult times." His eyes darted toward me, desperate, pleading. "We've faced challenges, but our name still stands tall." Murmurs rose. Skepticism hung heavy. I didn't plan to move, but then a woman near me whispered too loudly, "Tall? He's knee-deep in scandal." Laughter followed, cruel and unrelenting. That was my moment. I rose, slow and deliberate, and the room hushed like someone had cut the strings of the orchestra. "Legacy," I said, voice carrying without a mic, "isn't about a name on marble. It's about respect. And respect cannot survive arrogance." Every head turned. Quentin froze, sweat gleaming under the lights. I stepped closer to the stage. "You speak of strength, Quentin. But strength isn't mocking a father at his daughter's wedding. Strength isn't hiding behind your family's wealth. Strength is admitting your failures and standing tall anyway." The room thundered with whispers, cameras flashing like lightning. Quentin's hand trembled around the mic. I stopped just short of the stage, my voice steady as a verdict. "You wanted to humiliate me. Tonight, the world sees the truth. You're not a man of legacy. You're a boy who mistook cruelty for charm and lost everything." Gasps echoed. A gavel would have been quieter. Quentin's knees seemed to buckle. He dropped the mic, the sound clanging like a death knell. And in that silence, I knew the stage was set for the final act. The silence after the mic hit, the stage was heavier than any applause. Quentin stood frozen, pale under the chandelier's golden glare. Every eye in the ballroom pinned on him, like a specimen under glass. Cameras flashed, his collapse immortalized in 1,000 pockets. He bent to grab the microphone, but his father, Zeke, was faster. The old man stepped onto the stage, shoulders squared, jaw clenched with the fury of a patriarch forced to watch his name drown. He didn't look at me. He looked only at his son. "Enough," Zeke barked, his voice slicing through the whispers. "You've embarrassed this family for the last time." Gasps rippled. The orchestra had stopped playing, the gala reduced to a courtroom. Zeke the judge and jury. Quentin's voice cracked. "Dad, please." But Zeke cut him off, pointing to me. "That man you mocked? He owns you. He owns me. He owns everything you pretend is yours. And instead of respecting him, you spat on the very hand that kept you from ruin." The words landed like blows. The crowd murmured, nodding, savoring every syllable. Quentin's humiliation was no longer private, no longer whispered in back rooms. It was broadcast live, under chandeliers and crystal goblets. I remained still, letting Zeke deliver the sentence his son had written for himself. Quentin's eyes darted to me, glassy and desperate. "Mr. Tanner, please, tell them it isn't true. Tell them I can fix this." I stepped forward, slow and steady, until I stood at the foot of the stage. My Timex ticked softly, steady as judgment. "You had every chance to fix it," I said, voice calm but cold. "At the wedding, in private, even in front of your father. And each time, you chose arrogance over respect." Quentin shook his head violently. "I didn't mean it." "Intentions don't matter," I interrupted. "Actions do, and your actions revealed exactly who you are." The ballroom exhaled in unison. Some clapped softly, others just stared, the truth settling like dust after a demolition. Zeke stepped back, shoulders slumping. For the first time, I saw not an empire builder, but a tired old man watching the collapse of his dynasty. Quentin dropped the microphone again, the metallic clang echoing like a verdict. He staggered off the stage, bumping into tables, wine glasses toppling in his wake. The crowd parted, offering no helping hand, only disdain. I turned to leave, but Theo appeared at the back of the hall, eyes glistening. She'd seen it all. Our gazes met, and for the first time in weeks, I saw no confusion, no fear, only clarity. She mouthed a single word, "Dad." And I knew. The final act wasn't about crushing Quentin further. It was about closing the circle, reclaiming dignity in full view of everyone who once laughed. The storm was ready to break. The 16th part, the strike of lightning, was waiting. I wasn't mad when he called me poor dad. I was done pretending. Those words had carried me through every step of this war. And now, standing in the center of the ballroom, I knew the war was over. It wasn't about Quentin anymore. It was about me, Theo, and the dignity stolen that night at the altar. Quentin slumped against the far wall, his tuxedo wrinkled, bow tie undone, eyes darting like a cornered animal. Guests whispered, filming every second, immortalizing the fall of a man who once believed himself untouchable. Zeke sat at the table, head bowed, too proud to weep but too broken to lift his eyes. Theo stepped forward, her heels clicking against marble, echoing in the silence. She stopped beside me, her hand brushing mine, grounding me. "Dad," she whispered, her voice steady for the first time in weeks. "Say it. Say what he needs to hear." I turned to the crowd, not raising my voice but letting it carry. I came to this wedding as a father, not a billionaire. I gave a gift, not because I had to, but because love demands sacrifice. And what did I receive? I paused, letting the silence throb. Mockery, from a boy who thought cruelty was strength. The audience leaned in. Some nodded, others held their breath. I pulled the worn Timex from my wrist, the watch Maria gave me decades ago, the symbol of every quiet sacrifice, every hidden truth. I held it up, the light glinting off its scratched face. This watch isn't gold. It isn't flashy, but it's worth more than every diamond in this room, because it was built on love, loyalty, and time. 3 things money can't buy. Then I lowered my gaze to Quentin. "You wanted to humiliate me? Tonight, I return the gift. In front of everyone, I give you the truth. You are not a man. You are a shadow of one, and shadows vanish when the light comes." Gasps, murmurs. The orchestra, silent until now, struck a single note as if to mark the moment. Quentin crumpled, sliding down the wall, burying his face in his hands. Cameras captured every second. The final collapse of arrogance dressed as charm. I slipped the Timex back onto my wrist, turned to Theo, and offered my arm. She took it without hesitation, her head high. Together, we walked past the crowd, past the chandeliers, past the marble etched with the Quentin name. As the doors opened, I looked back once, not at Quentin, not at Zeke, but the room itself. A place that had been filled with laughter at my expense now sat silent, reverent. Outside, the Miami night air was warm, alive, forgiving. Theo squeezed my arm. You didn't just win, Dad, she said softly. You showed them what real strength looks like. I nodded, eyes on the horizon where the city lights bled into the sea. No, kiddo, I didn't win. I reminded them, and I reminded myself. The Timex ticked steady on my wrist, no longer a disguise but a crown. And that was a final image, not Quentin's ruin, but my freedom, dignity restored, mask discarded, walking into the night with nothing left to hide. If you like this story, please like this video. Subscribe to the channel and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.